Not so long ago, Putin met with Xi Jinping, and Xi Jinping talked about how the Chinese have pills, little tablets, that can allow a person to live for 150 years. Whether these are actually pills or something else is unknown. In general, there is a possibility to give people a lifespan of 150 years. It was Xi Jinping who said this, not Putin. It was Xi Jinping who said it. But for some inexplicable reason, Russian bloggers and various Russian analysts, starting of course with those prominent pro-Kremlin analysts, began to widely disseminate the narrative that it was indeed President Putin himself who had uttered this particular statement, and certainly not President Xi Jinping, almost as if this surprising attribution served as a significant reward for President Putin's efforts. That it was specifically Putin who talked about this. So, even if Putin did say that forecasts show there is a chance to live to 150 years old in this century, that doesn't mean it's Putin's idea. It's an idea from the Chinese. It's Xi Jinping's idea, who is luring all the rich, all the wealthy people who will pay money for this. After all, they used to sell stars in the sky. And this will be sold too. Essentially, people don't have a medicine, but there is a science about how to live longer. It's when you're not injected with everything indiscriminately. You understand? That's the first factor. When you don't eat all the food that's sold in stores today, that's the second factor. When you don't breathe city air and don't live in the city, don't reside there. That's the third factor. And of course, when you are constantly moving, because lack of consistent movement, the significant decline of human physical activity, inevitably leads to the premature aging of the body. Consequently, all these processed food products that we frequently consume can unfortunately cause a detrimental rot within the body. That is, a person develops age spots. A person begins to age mentally. Again, why is that? Because of the water they drink. From bottles, bottled water, yes, or they get water from the tap. But all of this accumulates as aging in the body. In other words, a person creates conditions for themselves in which their life becomes shorter and shorter. And even if not so long ago, your grandfathers and great-grandfathers lived to be about 100 or at least 93. I had an acquaintance who lived in Geneva, was born near Kiev, in the Kiev ghetto, and she lived to be 105 years old. That's not a long life for a person. It's actually quite normal. And now we're told that the Chinese have some kind of remedy. Yes, you can eat ginseng. Chinese leaders, wealthy Chinese people, pay a lot of money. They buy pieces of genuine, real wild ginseng. These precious pieces truly help a person, significantly bolstering their immune system, helping them effectively fight against the various synthetic products they might consume. A person. So you can certainly eat this valuable root. You can acquire it if you happen to have a substantial amount of money. It's expensive, really expensive. But wealthy people can afford it. So, well, let them go to China, get massages, and do acupuncture too. All of that is very beneficial. The Chinese have preserved their folk medicine, their traditional medicine, and they mostly treat themselves with it, even in clinics. But in Russia, folk medicine was banned. So what do you expect? How can you talk about 150 years when folk medicine was banned? Folk medicine is something a person can do for themselves without any doctors or medications. But that's not profitable. It's profitable for medicine to exist instead. So at some point in Russia, they decided to ban everything. And the result proved itself. That is, people stopped living well, I wanted to say. They stopped being healthy. So don't attribute the Putin about 150 years thing to me. Now all the crows on the fence pecking away, the ones eating breadcrumbs from Putin's palm, while living in the West, are starting to talk about these topics just to praise Putin, to say his name out loud once again. But as a rule, our life and the practice of the last 100 years have shown us that such hangers-on eventually start to be eliminated. Why? They know too much. They know too much, and when they become unnecessary or others appear, that's when the old ones are liquidated. The old ones are disposed of. That's usually how it goes. This is a century-old practice, my friends. Study the practice and you'll get your jar of honey. So there are natural products that you need to eat. Buy yourself some root. In Russia, there are roots too. Red root and some other root they dig up. Yes, they dig it up in the Far East. In the central part of the country, it doesn't grow, but buy it. By the way, when I gave birth to my daughter, and at that time I was working at the United Nations, a Taiwanese woman, a woman from Taiwan, brought me a piece of wild ginseng as a gift and told me, take care of it, boil it. She explained how to boil it, what to do with it, because she said, now that you've given birth, you need a lot of strength. And I remember, first of all, her kindness. The people who are close to you, who genuinely want to help you. To help with your health? No, not with money. They bought you an expensive root and brought it to you. A real expensive root. A genuine one. Not the ones sold in bottles, for tourists, right? No, but the most authentic, expensive root. And that's what helps. So you see, friends, that everything exists in our nature. We have a number of Russian herbs, which can also help prolong your life. But the body must be clean, it needs to be cleansed. And first and foremost, you need to give up meat. Can you give it up? First of all, the spirit is cleansed, the soul is cleansed, and the body is cleansed, the physical body is cleansed. Well, then you can talk about living to 150 years. Look at all these elders. None of them eat meat. Among the people, yes, it's being promoted, eat meat. Destroy yourself. By the way, in prison there is such a torture, though not in Russian prisons. A person is put on a meat-only diet and fed meat every day, only meat and nothing else. After 3 days, the person dies. At least that's how I remember it. Or maybe a little longer, but the person definitely dies. That's why there are herbs. Reach out to me, I'll tell you which herbs. We'll have a conversation together. Visit my Boosty page where I also talk about these things. And this is what prolongs life. Prolongs your life. But the main thing is to give up meat. But no one will tell you that. I'm Tanya Karatsuba Sedbergen, September 17, 2025.